Maya Patel's story began in a small, quiet town where life moved at its own unhurried pace. Nestled between rows of modest homes and weathered brick buildings stood Maplewood High School, the place her father, Mr. Patel, had worked as a janitor for over 2 decades. Every morning, Maya would wake up to the faint hum of the vacuum cleaner as her father tidied the school hallways before sunrise. Life wasn't easy for their family. Money was tight, and luxuries were rare, but Maya never complained. Instead, she found joy in the little things, doodling in her notebook during class, watching sunsets from the rooftop, or listening to birds chirp outside her bedroom window. At school, however, things weren't as simple. While Maya tried her best to stay positive, she couldn't ignore the whispers that followed her through the crowded hallways. Some kids teased her for wearing clothes stitched together by her mother, while others snickered about how her shoes didn't match because they were hand-me-downs from cousins. Even teachers sometimes overlooked her, assuming she wouldn't amount to much. But Maya didn't let their words break her spirit. She carried herself with quiet dignity, always smiling politely and working hard in class. Deep down, though, she dreamed of something bigger, a chance to prove herself and show everyone that she was more than just the janitor's daughter. One crisp autumn afternoon, the school held an assembly to introduce students to various clubs and extracurricular activities. Posters advertising sports teams, drama workshops, and science fairs lined the walls of the auditorium. Maya sat near the back, clutching her backpack tightly, feeling both curious and out of place. She watched as different teachers took turns speaking, trying to spark interest in their programs. When it was time for the music department to present, Mr. Grayson, the stern-looking music teacher, stepped onto the stage holding a shiny violin. "Who here wants to learn how to play this beautiful instrument?" he asked, his voice echoing through the room. A few hands shot up immediately, mostly students whose parents could afford private lessons. Then, almost mockingly, Mr. Grayson turned toward Maya. Holding out the violin, he said with a smirk, "Here, maybe this'll keep you out of trouble." The comment drew scattered laughter from some students, but Maya simply stared at him, her heart pounding. Without hesitation, she reached out and accepted the violin, cradling it carefully in her arms. Though the moment stung, Maya refused to let it crush her. As she walked back to her seat, she noticed the weight of the violin in her hands and felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest. It was as if the instrument was whispering secrets only she could hear. That evening, when Maya brought the violin home, she marveled at its intricate design. The smooth curves of the wood, the shimmering strings, the elegant scroll at the top. She ran her fingers lightly over its surface, imagining what it might sound like if she could make it sing. Little did anyone know, this seemingly insignificant act of mockery would set into motion a journey that no one, not even Maya herself, could have predicted. What started as a joke planted a seed of curiosity in Maya's mind. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream of creating something extraordinary. And as she gazed at the violin under the dim light of her bedroom lamp, she made a silent promise. She would prove them all wrong. That night, as the house grew quiet and the rest of her family drifted off to sleep, Maya sat cross-legged on the floor with the violin resting gently in her lap. The room was dimly lit by a single bowl hanging from the ceiling, casting soft shadows on the walls. Her fingers traced the smooth wooden surface of the instrument, marveling at its craftsmanship. It felt foreign yet strangely familiar, as though it belonged in her hands. She didn't know much about violins, how to hold them properly, how to tune them, or even how to produce a sound. But she was determined to figure it out. With no teacher to guide her, Maya turned to whatever resources she could find. She rummaged through old books at the school library during lunch breaks, borrowing volumes on music theory and basic techniques. At home, she scoured YouTube for tutorials, watching videos late into the night until her eyes grew heavy. Each video taught her something new: how to position the bow, how to press the strings without muting the sound, and how to keep her posture steady. But learning from videos wasn't enough. Practice was key. So every evening after finishing her homework, Maya picked up the violin and tried again, and again, and again. At first, the sounds she produced were far from musical. Screeches and awkward plucks filled the air, making her wince. Sometimes, her younger brother complained from the next room, covering his ears dramatically. "You're killing that poor violin," he teased, but Maya just laughed and kept going. She knew she wasn't perfect, and that was okay. What mattered most was that she was improving, even if progress came slowly. Every time she managed to hit a clear note, her heart soared. Those small victories fueled her determination to push further. As weeks passed, Maya began to notice changes, not just in her playing, but in herself. Her fingers became calloused from pressing against the strings, and her arms grew stronger from holding the bow steady for long stretches. More importantly, she discovered a newfound confidence within her. Music gave her a way to express emotion she couldn't put into words. When she played, all the teasing, the doubts, and the struggles faded away. It was just her and the violin, creating something beautiful together. One chilly Saturday morning, Maya decided to take her practice outside. She climbed to the rooftop of her building, where she often went to think or watch the sunrise. With the violin tucked under her chin, she began to play. The melody started hesitantly, like a bird testing its wings, but soon it flowed more smoothly. Notes danced in the crisp autumn air, carrying her music across the rooftops and into the streets below. Unbeknownst to her, a group of neighbors had gathered near the building, drawn by the unexpected sound. They stood silently, captivated by the hauntingly sweet tune drifting down from above. When Maya finally lowered the violin, she noticed the small crowd and froze, embarrassed. Had they been listening the whole time? To her surprise, they clapped enthusiastically, calling out words of encouragement. "That was amazing," one woman exclaimed. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Another neighbor added, "You should perform somewhere. People need to hear this." For the first time, Maya realized that her talent wasn't just something personal. It had the power to touch others too. Word of Maya's playing spread quickly through the neighborhood. Neighbors who once barely acknowledged her now greeted her warmly, asking when they might hear her play again. Even her father, who rarely showed emotion beyond a proud smile, hugged her tightly one evening after overhearing her practice. "My girl is going to do great things," he whispered, his voice thick with pride. But despite the growing admiration, Maya remained humble. She knew she still had a lot to learn, and she refused to let praise distract her from her goal. Each day, she practiced harder than the last, driven not just by a desire to improve, but by the belief that she could turn what started as a cruel joke into something extraordinary. Unbeknownst to her, the school orchestra awaited, a stage where her journey would truly begin. The next Monday morning, Maya walked into school with a mix of excitement and nervousness bubbling inside her. She had spent the entire weekend practicing, determined to show Mr. Grayson that she was serious about joining the orchestra. Clutching the violin case tightly in one hand, she approached his classroom during lunch break. Her heart raced as she knocked softly on the door. When Mr. Grayson opened it, his expression shifted from mild annoyance to surprise, and then skepticism. "What do you want?" he asked bluntly, leaning against the doorway. His tone wasn't exactly welcoming, but Maya stood her ground. "I'd like to join the orchestra," she said firmly, looking him straight in the eye. For a moment, Mr. Grayson just stared at her, his brow furrowed. He remembered the joke he'd made weeks ago, handing her the violin as if it were some kind of punchline. Now here she was, standing before him, asking for a chance to prove herself. It was almost surreal. "Do you even know how to play?" he asked, crossing his arms. His voice carried a hint of disbelief, as though he expected her to admit defeat right there. But Maya didn't flinch. "Yes, sir," she replied calmly. "I've been practicing every day." Mr. Grayson hesitated, glancing at the violin case in her hands. Finally, he sighed and stepped aside. "Fine. Let's see what you've got." Inside the classroom, the air smelled faintly of polished wood and rosin. Rows of chairs and music stands sat neatly arranged, waiting for the afternoon rehearsal. Mr. Grayson gestured toward an empty seat near the back. "Go ahead," he said, folding his arms again. "Show me." Maya took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She carefully unpacked the violin, adjusting its position under her chin. As she raised the bow, she closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting the weight of the moment settle over her. Then she began to play. The first note rang out clear and pure, filling the silent room. It was followed by another and another, until the melody unfolded like a delicate flower blooming in spring. The piece wasn't complicated. It was a simple tune she practiced tirelessly. But it was flawless. Each note flowed seamlessly into the next, creating a harmony that seemed to resonate through the very walls of the classroom. Mr. Grayson's skeptical expression slowly melted away, replaced by something resembling awe. He uncrossed his arms and leaned forward slightly, as if afraid to miss a single note. Even when Maya finished playing, he remained silent for a few seconds, staring at her as though seeing her for the first time. "Well," he finally said, clearing his throat. "That was impressive." The words felt awkward coming from him, like they didn't quite fit. After a pause, he added gruffly, "You can join the beginner section. Rehearsals are after school." Maya beamed, her chest swelling with pride. "Thank you, Mr. Grayson," she said earnestly before packing up her violin and leaving the room. Outside, she allowed herself a small victory dance, unable to contain her joy. But not everyone shared Mr. Grayson's reluctant admiration. During her first rehearsal later that week, whispers rippled through the group of students seated around her. Some snickered quietly, while others exchanged doubtful glances. "She's only here because Mr. Grayson feels bad for her," one boy muttered loud enough for her to hear. Another girl rolled her eyes dramatically, muttering, "This is going to drag us all down." Maya ignored them, focusing instead on the sheet music in front of her. She knew better than to let their comments shake her confidence. Still, she couldn't help but notice the way they treated her, like an outsider who didn't belong. Every time she made a mistake, someone would smirk or whisper behind their hand. And yet, each criticism only fueled her determination to improve. As the weeks went by, Maya continued to practice relentlessly. While other students chatted idly during breaks or complained about rehearsals, she stayed focused, fine-tuning her technique and memorizing new pieces. Slowly but surely, she began to earn begrudging respect from some of her peers. One afternoon, after nailing a particularly tricky passage, she caught a fellow violinist glancing at her with a hint of admiration. "You're getting really good," the girl admitted quietly during a water break. "I didn't think you'd last this long." Maya smiled warmly. "Thanks," she replied simply, refusing to dwell on past judgments. Deep down, she knew her journey was far from over. But for now, she was content knowing she was proving them wrong, one perfect note at a time. Word of Maya's talent spread like wildfire through the school, though not everyone was ready to accept it. Some students whispered behind her back, calling her lucky or claiming she peaked too early. Others dismissed her as a novelty act, a fleeting curiosity who would eventually fade into obscurity. But Maya didn't let their skepticism faze her. If anything, it only pushed her harder. She knew that talent alone wasn't enough. Discipline and perseverance were what truly mattered. Every day after school, Maya stayed late in the music room, practicing until her fingers ached and her arms felt like lead. The other members of the orchestra had long since gone home, but Maya remained, determined to refine every note. Sometimes Mr. Grayson would walk by, pausing outside the door to listen. At first, he said nothing, simply observing from a distance. But over time, he began offering quiet advice, tips on bowing techniques or suggestions for improving her posture. Though his manner was still gruff, there was a newfound respect in his tone, one that Maya noticed and appreciated. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed by others either. One afternoon, as she packed up her violin after another long practice session, the principal, Mrs. Carter, appeared in the doorway. A kind woman with silver hair and a warm smile, Mrs. Carter had always been supportive of Maya, often stopping to chat during lunch breaks or assemblies. Today, however, her expression was serious. "Maya," she began, stepping into the room, "I've heard wonderful things about your progress in the orchestra. Have you ever considered auditioning for something bigger?" Maya blinked in surprise. "Bigger? Like what?" "There's a regional competition coming up," Mrs. Carter explained. "It's for young musicians across the state. Winners get scholarships to top conservatories." She paused, studying Maya's face. "I think you could do well." For a moment, Maya felt overwhelmed. Competitions like that were for prodigies, students who'd been playing since they were toddlers, whose parents hired private tutors and bought them expensive instruments. What chance did she have against them? Sensing her hesitation, Mrs. Carter placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've already proven so many people wrong," she said softly. "Why stop now? Just think about it." That night, Maya lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The idea of competing terrified her, but deep down, she couldn't ignore the spark of excitement flickering in her chest. This was her chance to show the world, not just her school, that she belonged among the best. And so, with trembling hands, she signed up for the audition. Preparing for the competition became an all-consuming endeavor. Maya spent hours poring over sheet music, choosing pieces that showcased both her technical skill and emotional depth. She settled on Bach's Chaconne Asterisk, a notoriously difficult piece known for its complexity and beauty. It was risky. Many seasoned musicians struggled with it, but Maya wanted to challenge herself. With each passing day, she grew more confident, her playing sharper and more expressive. Still, doubts lingered. During rehearsals, some classmates mocked her ambition, rolling their eyes when they saw her hunched over her music stand, perfecting tiny details no one else seemed to care about. "You're wasting your time," one boy sneered. "Those judges won't even look twice at someone like you." His words stung, but Maya refused to let them break her focus. Instead, she channeled her frustration into her music, pouring every ounce of determination into her practice. On the morning of the audition, Maya woke up before dawn, her stomach tied in knots. As she dressed in her second-hand outfit, an old dress her mother had lovingly altered to fit her perfectly, she reminded herself why she was doing this. This wasn't just for her. It was for everyone who had ever doubted her, for every person who thought dreams were reserved for the privileged few. When she arrived at the venue, the atmosphere buzzed with nervous energy. Dozens of competitors milled about, tuning their instruments and reviewing sheet music. Many of them came from elite schools, dressed in designer clothes and carrying gleaming violins worth thousands of dollars. Maya clutched her battered instrument tightly, feeling out of place yet resolute. As she waited backstage, she closed her eyes and took slow, steady breaths. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "My girl is going to do great things." When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding like a drum. The spotlight was blinding, but she focused on the violin in her hands, letting its familiar weight ground her. And then she began to play. The auditorium fell silent as Maya raised her bow to the strings. Her hands trembled slightly, but she steadied herself, taking a deep breath. The first note rang out, clear and resonant, cutting through the air like a beam of light-piercing darkness. It was bold yet tender, commanding attention without demanding it. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Every judge in the room leaned forward, their pens poised midair, as if afraid to miss a single sound. Maya closed her eyes, letting the music take over. Each note flowed seamlessly into the next, weaving a tapestry of emotion that filled the vast space. She poured everything into her performance, the late nights practicing alone, the whispered insults from classmates, the quiet sacrifices her family had made for her dreams. Every ounce of pain, joy, and determination found its way into the melody, transforming Bach's Chaconne Asterisk into something deeply personal. As the piece progressed, the complexity of the composition became apparent. Fast runs alternated with slow, mournful passages, testing not only her technical skill, but also her ability to convey raw feeling. Her fingers danced across the fingerboard with precision, while her bow arm moved with grace and control. Even the smallest details, subtle shifts in dynamics, delicate phrasing, were executed flawlessly. It was as though the violin had become an extension of her soul, speaking directly to the hearts of those listening. In the audience, the judges exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from admiration to disbelief. One older woman dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, visibly moved by the depth of Maya's interpretation. Another judge scribbled furiously in his notebook, underlining words like extraordinary and unforgettable. No one spoke. They didn't dare interrupt the spellbinding performance unfolding before them. When the final note faded into silence, there was a beat, a moment where the world seemed to hold its breath. Then the room erupted into applause. People clapped enthusiastically, some rising to their feet in a standing ovation. Maya opened her eyes, blinking against the bright stage lights. Tears welled up as she realized what she'd just accomplished. For so long, she carried the weight of doubt, not just from others, but from within herself. Now, standing on that stage, she felt lighter, freer, as though she'd finally shed the chains of insecurity. Afterward, as she stepped off the stage, Mrs. Carter greeted her with a hug. "You were incredible," the principal said, her voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely incredible." Other competitors approached her too, many congratulating her with genuine smiles. Some even admitted they'd never heard anyone play like that before. Maya accepted their praise graciously, though part of her still couldn't believe it was real. A few days later, the results were announced. Maya sat nervously in the school cafeteria, surrounded by classmates who had gathered to watch the live stream. When her name appeared on the screen as the first-place winner, the room erupted into cheers. Students who had once mocked her now cheered the loudest, jumping out of their seats and chanting her name. Even Mr. Grayson cracked a rare smile, nodding approvingly from across the room. But the victory wasn't just about winning. Along with the trophy came a full scholarship to a prestigious conservatory, a gateway to opportunities Maya had only dreamed of. News of her success spread quickly, earning headlines in local newspapers and inspiring countless people in her community. Teachers who had doubted her apologized, admitting they'd underestimated her potential. Parents praised her as a role model for their children, and neighbors celebrated her as proof that talent could bloom anywhere, regardless of circumstances. For Maya, however, the greatest reward was seeing the pride in her father's eyes. That evening, as he hugged her tightly, tears streaming down his face, he whispered, "I always knew you were special, Beta. Always." Though the competition marked a turning point in Maya's life, it was also a reminder of how far she'd come. What started as a cruel joke had transformed into a journey of resilience, passion, and triumph. And as she looked ahead to the future, she knew this was only the beginning. Arriving at the prestigious conservatory felt like stepping into an entirely different world. The sprawling campus was a stark contrast to the modest streets of Maya's hometown, with its grand concert halls, state-of-the-art practice rooms, and students who exuded confidence. Many of them came from wealthy families, their violins gleaming with polished wood and gold accents, while Maya still carried her battered instrument in a worn case. She often found herself feeling out of place, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. The first few weeks were overwhelming. Classes moved at a breakneck pace, and instructors expected perfection from day one. Maya struggled to keep up, her fingers fumbling over complex passages she'd never encountered before. During group rehearsals, some classmates whispered behind her back, questioning how someone like her had even been accepted. She must have gotten in because of that competition. One student muttered loudly enough for her to hear, "It's not fair." At times, Maya doubted herself. Imposter syndrome crept in, whispering cruel thoughts. Asterisk, "You don't belong here. You're not good enough." Asterisk, but instead of letting those voices win, Maya channeled them into fuel for her fire. She reminded herself of everything she'd overcome: the teasing, the skepticism, the countless hours spent practicing alone, and resolved to prove her worth once again. Her days became a blur of classes, rehearsals, and late-night study sessions. While other students relaxed during breaks or attended social events, Maya stayed glued to her music stand, mastering challenging pieces note by note. Her calloused fingers grew even rougher, and dark circles formed under her eyes, but she refused to give up. Slowly, her hard work began to pay off. Instructors noticed her progress, praising her dedication and unique interpretation of classical works. Fellow students stopped mocking her and started asking for tips on technique. Even the boy who had called her admission unfair approached her one day after rehearsal. "I'm sorry about what I said," he admitted sheepishly. "You're really talented. I guess I was just jealous." Maya smiled warmly. "Thanks," she replied simply, choosing not to dwell on past negativity. What mattered most was that she was improving and earning respect along the way. As semesters passed, Maya began to develop her own style. Drawing inspiration from her Indian heritage, she infused traditional ragas and rhythms into her performances, creating something fresh and captivating. Audiences were mesmerized by her ability to blend cultures seamlessly, calling her music transcendent. Critics praised her originality, saying she had a rare gift for evoking emotion in ways few musicians could. By her senior year, Maya's reputation had grown beyond the conservatory walls. She was invited to perform at renowned venues across the country, including Carnegie Hall, a dream she'd once thought impossible. On the night of the performance, nerves threatened to overwhelm her. As she stood backstage, clutching her violin, memories flooded back. The laughter in the school auditorium, the whispers of doubt, the moments when giving up seemed easier than pushing forward. But then she remembered her father's proud smile, her mother's quiet sacrifices, and all the people rooting for her success. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the stage. When she played, magic happened. The audience sat spellbound as her music soared through the hall, filling every corner with warmth and wonder. When the final note faded, silence hung in the air for a heartbeat before erupting into thunderous applause. Maya bowed deeply, tears streaming down her face, knowing she had finally arrived, not just as a musician, but as someone who defied expectations at every turn. Though the journey had been grueling, it taught her invaluable lessons about resilience, creativity, and staying true to oneself. And as she looked toward the future, Maya knew she wanted to share these lessons with others, especially those who, like her, might feel unseen or underestimated. After graduating from the conservatory, Maya made a decision that surprised many of her peers. Instead of pursuing fame or fortune in the world's most prestigious concert halls, she chose to return to her roots, to the small town where her journey had begun. For Maya, success wasn't just about personal achievement. It was about giving back and creating opportunities for others who might feel overlooked. Her first step was to visit Maplewood High School, the place where her life had changed forever. Walking through the familiar hallways brought back a flood of memories. The laughter, the teasing, and the moment Mr. Grayson handed her that violin as a joke. Now, years later, she stood before the same assembly of students, holding her battered instrument proudly. As she played a short piece, the room fell silent, captivated by the beauty of her music. When she finished, the applause was deafening. "I want every child here to have the chance I did," Maya told the crowd, her voice steady and sincere. "Music has the power to change lives. It certainly changed mine." With the help of her former teachers, local businesses, and community members, Maya founded a free music program called *Harmony for All*. The initiative provided instruments, lessons, and mentorship to children from low-income families. Old violins, flutes, and trumpets were donated and refurbished, while retired musicians volunteered their time to teach eager young minds. Maya herself spent countless hours working with students, sharing not only technical skills, but also the resilience and passion that had carried her through tough times. The impact was immediate and profound. Kids who had never imagined themselves playing an instrument discovered hidden talents they didn't know they possessed. Some found solace in music, using it as an outlet for emotions they struggled to express otherwise. Others blossomed with newfound confidence, standing taller and speaking louder thanks to the sense of accomplishment music gave them. Parents beamed with pride as they watched their children perform at recitals, many attending their first ever formal concerts. One student, Aisha, reminded Maya so much of herself. A shy ninth grader whose family struggled financially, Aisha often kept to herself, afraid of being teased for wearing hand-me-down clothes. But when she picked up a clarinet during one of Maya's workshops, something clicked. Her natural talent shone brightly, and within months, she became one of the program's star pupils. Seeing Aisha's transformation filled Maya with immense joy. It was proof that her efforts were making a difference. Beyond teaching, Maya also organized community events to showcase the students' progress. These performances drew large crowds, bringing together people from all walks of life. Neighbors who once dismissed music as a luxury reserved for the wealthy now understood its transformative power. Even some of Maya's old classmates, now adults with families of their own, enrolled their kids in the program, grateful for the opportunity to expose them to the arts. Through it all, Maya remained humble, always deflecting praise onto her students and mentors. Yet those around her couldn't help but admire her determination and generosity. She had turned what started as a cruel joke into a legacy of hope and inspiration, proving that greatness could emerge from even the unlikeliest circumstances. As she stood backstage at one of the community concerts, watching her students take their bows to thunderous applause, Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was more than just a dream come true. It was a promise kept. She had vowed to show the world that anyone, no matter their background, could achieve extraordinary things if given the chance. And now, surrounded by smiling faces and joyful melodies, she knew she was doing exactly that. Years passed, and Maya's impact on her community grew deeper with each passing day. The Harmony for All program expanded beyond Maplewood High School, reaching neighboring towns and eventually inspiring similar initiatives across the state. What had started as a small effort to give underprivileged children access to music blossomed into a movement that touched thousands of lives. Yet, despite her growing influence, Maya stayed grounded, always remembering where she came from and why she began this journey. One crisp autumn evening, Maya stood at the podium of a grand auditorium packed with people. It was the 10th anniversary celebration of Harmony for All and the event had drawn attendees from far and wide. Students, parents, teachers, local leaders, and even some of the judges who had awarded her first place in that life-changing competition years ago. A massive banner hung above the stage, reading, "Greatness can come from anywhere." As Maya looked out at the sea of faces, her heart swelled with gratitude. There were former students now pursuing careers in music, their eyes shining with pride as they prepared to perform. Parents clapped enthusiastically, many of them recalling how the program had transformed not just their children but entire families. Even Mr. Grayson, now retired and sitting in the front row, gave her a nod of approval, a silent acknowledgement of how far she'd come since that fateful day in his classroom. Maya stepped up to the microphone, her violin resting gently against her side. 10 years ago, she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "I was told I didn't belong. They said I wouldn't last long. But here we are today, proving that talent knows no boundaries, no matter where you come from or what others think of you." She paused, scanning the crowd. This program isn't just about teaching kids how to play instruments. It's about showing them that they matter, that their dreams are valid, no matter how big or small. Every child deserves a chance to shine, and it's our responsibility to make sure they get it. Her words earned a standing ovation, but the night was far from over. As the performances began, the audience witnessed firsthand the magic Maya had nurtured over the years. Young musicians poured their hearts into every note, their passion evident in every bow stroke and breath. One particularly moving moment came when Aisha, now a confident senior preparing to attend college on a music scholarship, delivered a breathtaking clarinet solo. When she finished, tears streamed down her face as the crowd erupted into cheers. Maya hugged her tightly backstage, whispering, "You did it. You showed them all." The final act of the evening was a surprise performance by Maya herself. Stepping onto the stage one last time, she raised her violin, the same battered instrument that had sparked her journey, and played a piece she'd composed especially for the occasion. Titled Echoes of Hope *, it wove together themes of struggle, triumph, and unity, leaving not a dry eye in the house. By the time the final note faded, the entire auditorium rose to its feet, applauding so loudly it seemed the walls might shake. After the event, Maya mingled with guests, accepting hugs and heartfelt thanks from countless people whose lives she had touched. One mother approached her, holding back tears. "Before your program, my son thought he was worthless," she said. "Now he dreams of becoming a composer. Thank you for believing in him when no one else did." Moments like these reminded Maya why she had dedicated her life to this cause. Fame and accolades paled in comparison to the joy of seeing others succeed because of opportunities she had helped create. Though she could have pursued a glamorous career on international stages, she knew her true purpose lay in empowering others to find their own voices. As the night drew to a close, Maya slipped outside for a quiet moment alone. Standing under the stars, she reflected on everything she'd achieved, not just for herself, but for her family, her community, and generations of children yet to come. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "My girl is going to do great things." She smiled softly, knowing she had honored his faith in her. In the distance, faint strains of music drifted through the air. Students practicing late into the night, inspired by the legacy she had built. Maya closed her eyes, letting the melodies wash over her. This wasn't the end of her story. It was merely another chapter in a journey that would continue to inspire greatness in others, one note at a time.